We are in a beautiful moment of our series, Sci-Fi and Spirituality. Our movie this week is Inception. And I must say, I've been excited about this message and kind of knew what we were going to talk about. And was doing some additional study this week. But I found myself feeling sort of heavy throughout the week. In my study, there was just this thing that was kind of gnawing at me, and I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. What is this thing that I'm feeling? And then last night, we received the verdict in the Trayvon Martin case. And I said, okay. Here we are. Here's life. Here's real life. And I don't care who you are, you have to be affected by this verdict. Regardless of which side you're on or who you think is guilty or not guilty, you have to feel something around this verdict. And I said, okay, God, well, what do? Do I just throw my notes out? Just everything I had, everything I prepared, we got to do something else. But what I realized is actually that the heart of this message is still actually very appropriate. And so we're going to talk a bit from this subject of all is mind. Now, if you saw the movie Inception, if you know about the movie Inception, what Inception is really inviting us to look at is how much of a playground our mind really is. That through this idea of shared dreaming, human beings can connect to each other and meet up in each other's dreams. And in the movie Inception, of course, it's an action movie, and so there's this idea of extradition. Can you take a thought from someone's mind, a secret that they're holding? And so you have these criminals that would go into a person's mind and find out the secret to some safe, the code to a safe, or some other big secret that then they could sell that secret to someone else. But the question comes up in the movie, well, what about inception? We know that it's possible to take something out of someone's mind, but is it possible to place an idea in someone's mind and let that idea grow in such a way that it causes them to make a powerful, profound, life-altering choice in the world? And what's interesting in the movie is that it actually presents it as a question that inception may not be possible. But what we actually know as metaphysicians, as those who are looking at spiritual teachings, we know that's actually how life works. That indeed all is mind, that the thoughts that we place into the mind is what actually creates our experience. I love the Kybalion. It starts out very clearly laying out the 7 principles. And what you have to first understand, before you can get into the principle of gender or the principle of correspondence or any of these other ideas, before you can get into these ideas of attraction and all of these wonderful things, you have to start with this principle of mentalism. That all is mental, all is mind, the universe is mind. But not only is all is mind, that the all in all itself, but we are in it, living, moving, having our being in it, but then also it is in us. And that's where we get to that idea of there's no separation between the universe. There's no separation between the source. There's no separation between God and all that is. But it's mind, it's mental. And so we are thoughts that emanated from the very mind of God. And as we are connected to God being a thought of God, we can recognize that we actually have a power that is beyond what we allow ourselves to actually operate in our lives. And so we understand, again, that this idea of inception is actually what we do every day. I'm remembering in Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill tells the story of his son who was born without hearing. But Napoleon Hill did not accept that idea that his son could not hear. And every night he began to whisper in his child's ear that you can hear. He began to plant an idea in his mind about what was true, because he understood although he couldn't hear, if he got close enough the vibrations would actually transmit into his brain so he could hear, right? And he began to continue to speak that word. And of course, they went to the doctors and waited to see what kind of technology would come out. And year after year went by. And eventually, fast forwarding through the story, the technology did come into being that allowed his son to be able to hear. And his son began to live a productive life because, see, at that time, it was like, well, your kid can't hear. He's just, you might as well just, teach him some woodworking skill or something. Like, he's never really going to do great things in the world because he's handicapped. But because he placed that idea in his mind, his son went on to do very great things in the world. Again, an idea planted in mind was the seed that then grew and germinated and created an experience. And so, as we are here on this day, after hearing of this verdict, George Zimmerman not guilty. Is anyone happy about that verdict? Is anyone jumping up and down? I saw a lot of things on Facebook last night. I saw the words devastated. I saw the words angry. I saw the words hurt, sad. I felt sorrow, guilt. I saw arguments. A lot of things were happening, a lot of emotions. But I invite you in this moment to consider that there must be something underneath this. That if we're in this mind that we choose to call God, if we're in this mind that is the Spirit, and we're saying that all is mind and that an idea creates an experience, I'm asking you, what kind of world do you want to live in? Because, see, we've seemed somewhere along the line to have forgotten where we want to be in the world. And so we've allowed the world to just sort of play out from this old story, this old paradigm of what was. A lot of people were saying, is this 1963 or is this 2013? We forgot that we have to plant the idea in mind of the world that we want to see. And so we talk about this idea of inception. What ideas are you choosing to plant in your mind and collectively in the world to create the world that we want to see? The world that the Trayvon Martins can go to the store with get a bag of Skittles and iced tea and return home safely. What ideas are we placing in mind? What's interesting to me is that in this moment with our anger, it's very easy to stand in a place of unforgiveness. Everything about this situation has been a victim and villain situation, right? We want George Zimmerman to be the villain. We want to see him get what he deserves. But how does that benefit all of us? How does that benefit us as humanity, as one family? If we are one in God, we are also one with George Zimmerman. So seeing him get what he deserves is then seeing yourself getting what you deserve. All this week, A Course in Miracles was supporting me in a beautiful way and standing in forgiveness and thinking about that idea of forgiveness, and it's challenging. I just want to share this piece in lesson 192 this week, talking about forgiveness. It says something that's interesting. It says, a jailer is not free, for he is bound with his prisoner. He must be sure that he does not escape, and so he spends his time in keeping watch on him. The bars that limit him become the world in which his jailer lives along with him. And it is on his freedom that the way to liberty depends for both of them. Therefore hold no one prisoner. Release instead of bind, for thus are you made free. The way is simple. Every time you feel a stab of anger, realize that you hold a sword above your head. And it will fall or be averted as you choose to be condemned or freed. Thus, does each one who seems to tempt you to be angry represent your Savior from the prison house of death? And so you owe him thanks instead of pain. Be merciful today. Be merciful today. See, we just sang the song, take me higher, Lord, take me deeper in you, forgetting those things which are behind. I'm reaching for things ahead, but how can you move higher or deeper in love the Lord in goodness itself if you are holding your brother or sister prisoner. Now, this is not a message that's easy for anyone to hear, but the truth is the truth. See, what's interesting, when we talk about love, we say the words, love is the more excellent way, and oh, I love you, and we stand in love, and we stand in peace. Love is interesting. The scripture says that love holds no record of wrongs. See, that's what love boggles your mind. Love is not this human thing that we experience in this world, right? That, oh, well, I love you today, but I don't love you tomorrow. You did what I wanted you to do, so I love you. You did what I didn't want you to do, so now I don't love you. That's not how love really operates. That's the human construct called love. In the same way, we've been looking for justice in this situation. Justice is a human construct. And we're upset because this human man-made thing did not work. But when was the last time it worked? Right? We were expecting something. We were expecting it to work this time. But, I mean, just in this century, I mean, we've seen so much. We've seen Sean Bell. We've seen Abner Louis. We've seen Amadou Diallo shot 41 times, unarmed. This weekend, the movie Fruitvale just opened, which is about an unarmed brother in San Francisco that was shot and killed. The story is not new. But then we have so much other things going on in this country. Many of us, if we're not upset about that, we're upset about what's going on with the revelations of the NSA, that we're being watched. But COINTELPRO wasn't that long ago. This is not new, right? So again, we're expecting something new, but not choosing to plant an idea in minds to have that experience of something new. And so again, I ask you, what kind of world do you want to live in? As we waited for this verdict, what was interesting to me is that there was a sense of, I remember hearing in history that, before the Emancipation Proclamation was ratified, enslaved Africans stood watch at night, waiting for the clock to turn midnight when they knew they would be free. And so in the African American church tradition, on New Year's Eve, we hold watch night service still to this day that comes from that place. And what I felt like that's what was going on this week was sort of a collective watch night service, that we were all waiting to see if George Zimmerman was going to be found guilty. But what's interesting to me about that is it externalizes our worth. We were standing there, regardless of what your race, creed, or color is, standing there waiting to see if they're going to value me as Trayvon Martin, value me as the family of Trayvon Martin. Because if they say that George Zimmerman is guilty, then that means that, oh, I'm okay, that I matter. If they say that George Zimmerman is guilty, then it means that who I am is worth something, that my life is worth something. But that placed all of the power, all of who and what you are in your whole, holy, beautiful, worthy selves, into the hands of a flawed justice system. We already know it's flawed. How dare you put your worth and value in a flawed system? What do we know to be true? That you were designed and created by your Creator, holy, beauty, and worthy now, regardless of what happens out here in the world. Because you see, and again, I believe that we've forgotten what has taken place in this country, because when I look again at enslaved Africans who believed something to be true about their life, who believed that they were free in their minds regardless of the chains that were on their wrists, who believed that they could be free, believed that they were valued, believed that they were worthy regardless of what was happening, who was being whipped or who was being chained. How could we have a Harriet Tubman except she knew something to be true that had nothing to do with what was going on outside of the world? But at the same token, I think about the abolitionists who supported the Underground Railroad and put their lives and their families in jeopardy in order for something to happen. But if they had waited and said, oh, well, let me see if the Dred Scott decision goes in favor of Dred Scott, and then if the Supreme Court says that Dred Scott indeed is a full-blown man, then I will put my support behind making sure that all human beings are free. That's not how it works. We we must use the process of inception and place an idea in mind that love wins regardless. That even though I'm experiencing the results of fear in this moment, I know that love is still in the room. And that love wins. I know that love holds no record of wrongs. I know that love heals. I know that love transforms. I know that whatever was going on in George Zimmerman's heart, that can be shifted. Because if I'm honest with myself, I know there are times that I have done things based on a stereotype of someone else. No, I may not have murdered them, but I've operated in that place before. I've boxed someone in and said, this is who they are, and made a choice or did something based on that. And so I know if my heart can be changed, I know that his heart can be changed. Because that's what love does. And I know that I've experienced pain and loss in my life and did not know how I was going to get through it. It felt like every day of my life I would just be sad. But I'm not sad today. And so I know that that same transforming power is present for Trayvon Martin's family right now. I know it's true. I know it's true. Because I've been through it. An idea in mind. I remember, I believe I was a teenager, and I was having a conversation with my grandparents. And I said, you know, I may not live to be 21. Because everything in the media was reminding me that as a young African American male, I could be shot, I could be killed, anything could happen, and I may not see my 21st birthday, because there are so many brothers that did not see their 21st birthday. Now, I grew up in the suburbs, predominantly white neighborhood. It didn't matter. You know, I wasn't looking at any of those things to say, oh, well, maybe you're outside of the circle. You know, you're not in the hood, so maybe that won't happen to you. But I was beginning to embrace something that I was being told about myself. And my grandparents said, no, don't say that. It's not true. And I went on to try to argue why it was true. Well, the statistics and the news and da 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 da. I said, no, it's not true. And they reminded me of my value in that moment, reminded me of my worth. And I remember something shifting in me in that moment. And I let go of that thought. I can only imagine what could have happened had I really allowed that thought to sit in my body. And every time I entered a situation that didn't feel too comfortable, fear would begin to rise up. And I would begin to operate from that place. The power of an idea. The power of an idea. What is your idea of the world that you want to live in? Because here now, those of us who are standing in truth, standing in love, standing in light, it is now our responsibility. This is our wake-up call. This is our God experience to now begin to create the world that we want to live in. But all is mine. Creating the world you want to live in by going out and beating up people or rioting or doing those things, that's not the answer. Life is created from within out. So it is time for us to go within and really think about that. Not based on what we see, not based on what we were told, but what we're choosing to be, what we're choosing to experience. I invite you for a moment to just think about what type of world do you want to live in. Use your imagination. I submit to you that we can live in a world where the so-called justice system is not required. Because we are all equals, literally treated and living as equals. Does love itself need a justice system? Does love itself need a judge and a jury? Does love itself need someone or something, some verdict to remind us who and what we are? Love is always looking at us with these eyes of approval. Love is always looking at us with eyes that says, you are great, you are grand, you are brilliant. You are my daughter, you are my son, you are my child, in whom I am well pleased. This is what love is always doing. And so this week, there will be many conversations, and pundits will have their opinions. And we will continue to watch the legal process play out. But I invite you all to be in the consciousness of love, recognizing that if we hold anyone prisoner, we have to stay in the jail ourselves with them to make sure they don't get out. Therefore, imprisoning ourselves and ensuring that we're not moving higher or deeper in our lives. I'm hearing the question from Byron Katie, who would you be without that thought? The thought of what should happen or what could have happened creates a whole world of pain, a whole world of confusion, and you're stuck. You can't move forward in that place. You can't move forward holding on to bitterness. You can't move forward holding on to unforgiveness. You can't move forward holding on to this person is wrong and I'm right. And one of the other lessons this week, the Course of Miracles says, forgive and you will see this differently. This is where our work begins this week. Forgive and you will see this differently. Forgive and then you will have a new thought, a new idea which you can place in mind, and that seed will begin to germinate and grow into this world of possibility that we know we can live in. We know and believe that we can actually live in a world that is a macrocosm of what we experience here at Celebration Spiritual Center. All colors, all creeds, all persuasions, loving each other as one family. We say it, celebrate this truth as one family, because that is the truth. We are one family. And yes, it is challenging in this moment to call George Zimmerman our brother. But he is our brother. Yes, it is challenging to even consider the confusion and chaos that is going on in his mind that we just can't imagine. But I guarantee you there's some things going on in his spirit. So we don't need to be his jailer. The universe has that under control. I invite everyone to stand in this moment and hold on to that idea, that perfect idea of the world that is governed and ruled by peace. The world that is governed and ruled by love. The world that is governed and ruled by equality. I'm remembering in this moment that we may have forgotten what was possible and relied on an old tape, an old story. But we destroyed that 1963 tape of prejudice and separation and verdicts that send us into a frenzy and anger. And we move back into this world of possibility that says we are all kings and queens, living equally, reigning together, creating a beautiful world, creating a beloved community, loving the earth and supporting the earth, loving each other and supporting each other, loving our children and affirming our children. We choose to stand in the possibility of one village, under one sun, in one magnificent universe. And each child is our child. And each mother is our mother. Each grandmother is our grandmother. Each grandfather is our grandfather. Each man is our brother. Each woman is our sister. We choose to move into that place of possibility. We choose to plant an idea in mind, recognizing that this is the will of the universe. For as we lift ourselves up and we view this great, beautiful planet that we live on called Earth, we see only unity. We see only one. As we lift ourselves up and look at this world from the vantage point of the galaxy, there is only bliss. And so, it is from those eyes, it is from that vantage point that we speak a word over our country. As I recognize and know in this moment that there are many feelings swirling all around us, I speak peace in the hearts and minds of everyone in this country. I speak peace where there is confusion. I speak peace where there is despair. I speak peace where there is devastation. I speak to the mother, to the grandmother that says, what can I tell my child now about his life? As there is a boy who looks just like him, who was killed and murdered for nothing. What do I tell him? And we speak the word that you are created in the likeness and image of your Creator, and you are holy, and you are beauty, and you are worthy, and you are powerful, and there is no thing outside of you that can change or disturb that. I speak to the heart of the Father that says, how do I teach my son how to live in this world? I speak to the heart and mind of the Father that says, how do I teach my children that they matter in this world? And I call forth the brilliance that is within him to speak brilliance back into that child, reminding him that he was created in love, that he was created in joy, created in bliss, and that cannot be severed or changed by anything outside of us. I speak to this country that is still struggling and still moving and growing and aching and groaning, seeking to live up to this great promise that all men, women, children are created equal, that we hold certain rights, inalienable rights, to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that we are free because we are here, that we are free because we are here. I speak to that country now, and I call it forth to live up to its promise, to live up to the deep ideals of what it truly is. This experiment called America is not over, it is still growing. And that is why we do not lose hope. We are just in a chapter in the story. And we turn the page, allowing America, land of the free, home of the brave, to be exactly that. As we move through our week, we hold on to this idea and this ideal, knowing that as we hold on to it, as we continue to whisper into its ear, just as Napoleon Hill whispered into the ear of his child, we will watch that idea transform our lives and transform our world. For this, God, I am so very, very, very grateful. I release this word in gratitude back into you, back into the cause, back into the how, back into the one mind, the one power, the one presence, working in all, through all, and as all. And together we say, amen, Ashe, and so it is.